Emerging markets have long been handmaidens of the industrialized West, as sources of cheap labor, eager consumers of Western goods, essentially nations of shopkeepers. Well, that's the past. Today, emerging nations are also emerging as big businesses on a global stage. To tell us a little bit more about what this brave new marketplace will look like is INSEAD professor Amitava Chattopadhyay. Welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.
You address this topic in your new book, The New Emerging Market Multinationals, 4 Strategies for Disrupting Markets and Building Brands. The companies you researched, you explain, are driven largely by ambition. What else?
So these markets have been spared the recession, or certainly, maybe the growth slowed a little bit, but there is growth. And so these companies are growing and they're doing well, and they're looking around and seeing the developed market companies struggling. The other interesting thing is that as recession has bitten into the wallets of developed market consumers, they're also beginning to look for value. And this is a space where emerging market companies have always been strong, because they cater to customers who are looking for value. Even wealthy emerging market customers are extremely cost conscious. That's something that's in their psyche. And so these companies are terrific at creating value for money.
Your research suggests a more sustainable strategy of building global brands via focused innovation. So let's take the case of Natura, a Brazilian cosmetics line that's been successful in a country like France that many would argue owns the skincare market. What did they get right?
They innovated and developed technology in their home market to begin with. So Natura has developed the capability of identifying traditional herbs that are used by the indigenous people of the Amazon, and being able to extract the active ingredients from these herbs, but do so in a sustainable way. So they chose France because among the developed economies, France was a country where Brazil resonated in a very positive way in the context of beauty. Secondly, France stood, if you will, for beauty products, and this would allow them in their other markets of Latin America to gain prestige by saying, look, we are present in France. Third, France is one of the biggest, on a per capita basis, the biggest beauty market in the world. So in some sense, by succeeding in this market, you learn a hell of a lot, and this learning can then be transferred into back at home and back into your other international markets to grow the business.
It's still early days for these new emerging market multinational companies. How much of a threat are they really to the established Western and Japanese players?
So I think there is a threat, but it's something that multinationals need to take seriously. So I think in the past, there was this assumption that, what can these guys do? I mean, they're the suppliers of goods to us that we then brand and then we sell, and they're not capable of real innovation, and so on and so forth. That has clearly changed. So there is a threat, which doesn't, however, mean that developed market multinationals don't have an advantage that in their own way. So for example, they have been around the world for a long time. They have data about consumers in a huge number of markets. The emerging market multinationals are just entering these new markets, and so they don't have data, so they have more difficulty in navigating these markets relative to the multinationals. The multinationals own storied brands. They can further bolster these storied brands, and all else equal, these storied brands have an advantage over the emerging market multinational firms. So I think what we're saying is that, look, you have to take these new competitors seriously. There are things that you can learn from them. And I think that the developed market firms are waking up to this. So for example, Jeffrey Immelt, in a Harvard Business Review article said that they're not worried about their traditional competitors because they know how to compete with them. And if anybody's going to destroy GE, it's going to be one of these emerging market multinationals that are emerging right now because they have different strategies, they have different strengths, and the developed market multinationals need to learn how to compete against these particular configurations of strengths, which they have a little expertise in doing.
Amitava, thank you so much for joining us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.